Good day. Today you're joining me for activity-based costing as a basic concept in terms of management accounting. Now, we live in a world today where people want to make more money and they want to know exactly what things cost. And this is what spurs on the activity-based costing type of thinking, because we are not satisfied anymore to have one huge big pool of indirect costs. We actually want to couple that to activity and see how much every single product costs that we're actually making in a factory. So this is where it comes from, and this is why people tend to want more information, which makes it harder for accountants but gives us more realistic information. So that's where activity-based costing stems from, and now we'll continue with the slides. If you can recall, factory overhead is applied to production in a rational, systematic manner using some type of averaging. This could be, for example, labor hours or machine hours. There are a variety of methods to accomplish this goal. Now, think back in the previous work that you've done in management accounting. We've always taken that overhead, being factory overhead, being production overhead, and we've said we allocate factory overhead based on machine hours or based on labor hours. That's very generalized, and actually in a big production function you might have a lot more cost drivers and cost pools that are actually generating these costs. You might be in a motor production facility where you actually have to change the setup to change the different vehicle that you're making on the different lines. So that would be setup costs, and that would also be time linked, how long it takes for you to actually change the setup of your machinery. So that's just one example. But in the past, we've only always used one big pool and one big allocation base. So yes, in a way it's becoming more complicated, but in a way it's becoming closer to reality. These methods often involve trade-offs between simplicity and reality. Simple methods and complex methods. Complex, it's more realistic. Simple, unrealistic. It's not really giving you the true picture. Today, firms produce a very broad variety of goods, while their indirect costs were relatively small. That was in the past. Today, we see numerous amounts of products and we see numerous amounts of overhead costs. Allocating overhead costs is not that simple anymore, as different products use different sets of overhead costs and resources. If simple costing is used, the end result, overcosting and undercosting, as some products will carry costs on behalf of others. Overcosting, a product consumes a low level of resources but is allocated high costs per unit. Undercosting, a product consumes a high level of resources but is allocated low costs per unit. Overcosting may result in competitors entering a market and taking market share for products that a company erroneously believes are low margin or even unprofitable. Undercosting may result in companies selling products on which they are in fact losing money when they erroneously believe them to be profitable. So this shows you that you can be making 7 different things in one factory, and each one of these can cost you a complete different set of costings. You can not only use labor hours, for instance, or time spent. You have to look at the specific costs that are related to the different products. Otherwise, you're actually giving a very unrealistic picture of that specific product, and you might be selling something off that could have made you loads of money, and you might be carrying on with something that you shouldn't be because it's actually costing you a lot of money. If you come out of the technological fields, we all know that development costs a lot of money. So if you're into the speaker environment, for instance, if you have to develop that, you have engineering costs, you have loads of costs that go in before you can actually produce something, and that would be really high end, and you only sell very few of them. Whereas if you make a lot more products and it's easy to cost, you might make a small market